In this video, I'm going to show you how to plan the form before you get started on your next big band arrangement. Hi, my name's Elliot Deutsch. I'm a professional composer and arranger from Los Angeles, and I have my own group, the Pandemonium Big Band. And before I get into this discussion of form and analysis, why don't you hit subscribe? Hit that subscribe button, smash it. Smash that subscribe. I sound so old when I say that. Oh my goodness, gross. So when we're talking about form, we're talking about song form, I guess, which is a fancy musical term for this happens, then this happens, then this happens. If you were studying classical theory, you'd study sonata form and other forms. College. Think of your favorite small group jazz recordings or performances. The ensemble is going to play the head or the melody of the song that they're playing. Then one or as many as everyone in the band is going to take a solo, improvising over that same chord structure that they used in the head. And then they're going to play the head again. And that's like the most basic jazz form. So before I begin writing an arrangement for big band, I always think about the form. And this has to do with wanting to keep my pieces concise and wanting to actually finish projects. So here's what I actually do when I'm going to write an arrangement. So first thing I do is I choose the piece. So let's say, how about a 32 bar piece, like Days of Wine and Roses. Ba-da, ba-do-do-do-do. That's sort of what it sounds like, right? Days of Wine and Roses. So I'll pick a tempo based on what I want to do with the song. So in that case, that tempo felt pretty good for the melody. So what I'll literally do is I'll pick up my phone and grab the metronome and tap out what that's going to be. So ba-do, ba-do-boo-bee-doo. All right. So I don't know if you can see it, but 160. The next thing we have to figure out is how many times through that 32 bar form are we going to be able to do and keep the piece the length that we want it to be. This opinion varies greatly, but I have a lot of experience writing for big band. I have even more experience listening to big band. And for me, Elliot Deutsch, to my sensibilities, a big band piece should really be somewhere between 3.5 minutes on the short end and maybe 5 minutes on the long end. I rarely go over 5 minutes. I try to not go over 5 minutes. Now, there are lots of good reasons to stretch out a piece. If you're writing for a school ensemble, for instance, maybe you want to have an open solo section and have lots of students have the opportunity to perform a solo. That's a really good reason to stretch a tune out. So I'm not, going to dwell on this too much, but when I'm planning out a piece, I'm planning on it being in that 3.5 to 5 minute zone. What I need to do is figure out how long a chorus is. So when we're talking about our speed being 160, that is 160 BPM, which stands for beats per minute. So whenever you get a piece of music, it'll show at the top, it'll say quarter note equals, and then some number, and that's how many beats per minute. So basically what the first thing I do, so I'll get out my calculator literally like this. So we have 32 bars times 4. We have 128 beats per chorus, right? And each minute has 160 beats, right? So we'll divide that by 160. There we go, 0.8. So each chorus takes 0.8 minutes, or 4/5 of a minute. And if you want to figure out how many seconds that is, just multiply it by 60. That's just under 50 seconds, 48 seconds. So if we have, let's say we're aiming for 4 minutes. 4 minutes divided by 0.8, and we get 5. Exactly 5. That was easy. So we have 5 choruses of Days and Wine and Roses. Will take 4 minutes to happen. All right, so when we're planning out what to do with our choruses, I like to think about the entire arrangement as a whole. Typically, I like my arrangements to have sort of increasing intensity, for lack of a better way of putting it. There's lots of ways to increase the intensity of an arrangement, but for our purposes, think of it as like you got to hit a really loud point at a certain point and then trail off. So we're probably going to have, you know, the band's going to play the entire melody. Then we're going to have some solos. Then there's going to be a development section of some kind, and then probably the melody again, or a reduced, maybe a half melody at the end. So if we have the entire melody at the front, and then we'll figure out how many solos we have in a minute. Let's say that the last bit has like a development section. Could either be a sax solo or a shout chorus or a soft shout, or you could do anything with it. But you know, let's say we would do a shout chorus that takes up the length of half of that melody section, and the second half will be actual melody. You know, maybe the same way we played at the beginning, or something that has a slightly increased orchestration so that it balances out with the shout chorus. We've got the beginning chorus and that chorus at the end, and then we have 3 choruses to work with in the middle. So you could have a solo section with repeats around it that has, you know, 3 different soloists, or maybe you could have one solo. You could have, you know, backgrounds that come in the second time or whatever, but you plan it out in this way. In that way, you know that your piece is going to be the right length. Also, when I'm doing the math to figure out how many choruses I have to work with, I also try to estimate on the short end, because I usually end up adding, like I'll add maybe an 8-bar introduction, like an intro to the piece, and then maybe I'll use that same 8-bar intro as the outro. And maybe I'll want to put a vamp in between, you know, soloists, or maybe some kind of build section after the last soloist before we get into the shout chorus. Or I always end up adding a little bit of material beyond just the number of choruses. So it's good to estimate on the short end and know that you'll have a little bit of time to work with when you're expanding out, fleshing out these sections a little bit. So at that point, you've basically planned your entire arrangement, and then it's just a matter of filling in the spots, right? Maybe you'd start by writing the melody at the beginning, but you don't have like an infinite amount of things to do. A lot of times when I was beginning with writing, I wouldn't know exactly how much development was necessary, or how many chorus, like should a sax solo be an entire chorus long? I mean, sometimes it should be. Check out Time Check. But usually it's better to kind of plan it out ahead of time, and then you just know, you're just filling it in on your score at that point, and it takes a lot of the pressure off. I've had a bunch of students ask me, how often do you do this type of calculation? And the answer is every single chart. If it's a piece that I composed, I usually compose ahead the same way that I would for a combo, and then I'm arranging it for big band. So I end up, you know, figuring out how long it's going to be and how much time I have to work with. There's a lot more things related to form that we could talk about, but I'm going to save those for other videos. So for now, if you haven't hit subscribe, please think about subscribing. I've got a lot more of these lessons coming. I'm trying to keep up a pace of 1 a week. But that's grueling. And definitely, if you haven't checked it out yet, there's a link in the video description to our Patreon. If you can, please consider supporting myself and the channel so that I can continue making these videos. And until the next one, goodbye.